Okay, we're trying this again. Third time is a charm, maybe. I don't know. We're going to give it a shot. Everybody, hey, we got it working again. Okay. Technical difficulties, but that's okay because you can see there we've got our latte. We've got some caramel, we got some chocolate going on, some French vanilla. Um, mm, Man, that is good. That is really good. Today, after all the technical difficulties, I don't know, maybe there's a lot going on. And being retired here in Korea, we got a few things going on that might have been resulted in the audio and the video not syncing up. We could dive into that, but some of the things that we're experiencing here in Korea is high heat. Holy crow, we are getting some hot heat. It is the temperatures during this time of year has gotten to the point of where we're getting heat that is like 10, 11, 12 degrees hotter than previous years. So yeah, it is a little rough. And for those of you who don't know, I don't like heat. I can do with dry heat, but when it comes heat and humidity come together for that vortex of hate that is put upon me, I just don't like it. It is just not something I enjoy. I can do summer, I can do fall, I can do winters in Korea when, we were walking to the gym, going about 2 miles, just over 2 miles, walking to the gym in 17-degree weather. I'm fine with that. But the heat and humidity is absolutely rough. So, but we got high heat. I don't know if you knew this, but there are racist umbrellas. We got some rain is coming, so that's going to be interesting. Some real estate and presidential underwear. Yeah, we're gonna dig into all this. And if you want to leave a comment, go ahead and leave it in the comment section down below. I will be able to read it, and we'll post it up on the screen, and we'll take a look at what's going on. Okay, with the high heat that we've got going on, what we end up seeing here is daily maximum power demand hits record high in July amid extreme heat wave. Like I said, we have been getting some crazy heat. Everybody wishes that they could be under a fountain, and we'll kind of get that because we're getting some rain. The average daily maximum power demand hit a record high last month as the country endured one of the most severe summer heat waves on record. Yeah, it is rough. So the electricity bills are going to get high. The peak power demand in July averaged 85 gigawatts of power, up 5.6% from a year earlier, according to the Power Exchange. And the highest level of July since 1993. I think I was in Korea in 1993 when the government began compiling relevant data. The monthly high was recorded in August 2024, where figures came to 87.5 gigawatts. Sounds like something from Back to the Future. How many gigawatts was that? 88 miles an hour. That's what it was. Record July was driven in increased electricity consumption for air conditioning, and I can tell you that is a thing, and people are paying more at the pump for electricity. So anyway, it's been absolutely crazy. The number of days of daily high temperatures reaching 33 degrees Celsius or higher totaled 15 days last month, more than 4 times the July averages of 3.4 days over the past 53 years. Yes, the past 53 years. It has actually gone kind of crazy. It ends up there's a lot of stuff going on here in Korea as far as let's make a little bit of adjustment here. Do we got some trying to adjust some stuff, and because we still got, I think when I reset the cameras and everything, it ends up we got some. I don't know. We'll just run with that with what we got. So yeah, it's definitely hot in Korea. Tropical nights where nighttime temperatures stayed above 25 degrees persisted for a total of 23 days, the longest stretch since 1973. Yeah, I was like young back then in 73. I remember in the 70s going to the first Star Wars movie. I think that was in 1979. That was an awesome movie. The government expects peak electricity, this demand to reach 97.8 gigawatts in the second week of August. Again, we're not even in the worst of it yet. So, yeah, hold on to your seats. And they're maintaining a power reserve of around 10. So, yeah, I think what's going to happen is we're going to get hot. Absolutely crazy as far as what we have for the heat. And if you want to take a look at the weather of what we got going on today, this is based on Piontek, just about 15, 20 minutes away from where we live, and they're pretty good. So what we end up is we've got like 90 degrees and 76 low, 91 and 79, and then Wednesday 83 and 76. So we're getting into the 80s, but we're going to have that. It feels like much hotter than it's always going to be. And then later, when we get into next week, we're talking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're talking like 90 degrees, showers, rains, thunderstorm. Yeah, we're getting some crazy weather going on here. So yeah, we've got 95% humidity, so that's always a joy when you have heat as well. So yeah, and when we look at the calendar for this, let's see if the calendar is going to pop up. Okay, that's it. I thought it was going to be like a 30-day weather calendar. Okay, that. Anyway, moving on. Moving on to the next topic, we're going to be talking about some other stuff, and this is hard. This is absolutely rough because I don't know if you knew this, but apparently umbrellas are racist. If you use an umbrella, or parasol as they're known here in Korea, you're racist. And yeah, this is absolutely crazy. This is actually, it makes me wonder why they even gave this any credence here in Korea. I just don't get it. Let's jump into this. Are Koreans using parasols racist? Skin health versus white supremacy debate reignites. Oh my. I was like, what are you talking about? And, with the weather, I don't know, maybe it has to do with the weather and being 10, 12 degrees hotter and record highs in Korea for, power demand because of the heat and the humidity. There's also this thing called skin cancer, which, it's kind of a thing. And if you've walked around Korea in the hot summer with the sun blazing down, either with an umbrella or without, you would definitely go with. I don't care what race you are. Yeah, it's not racist. You're just trying to protect yourself from the angry sun. Now, you might be wondering who in their right mind would think using an umbrella would be racist. Well, it ends up, a social media influencer claims that Asians are using parasols upholding white supremacy, has reignited debate about the practice of shielding oneself from the sun, a common habit in many Asian countries meant to protect skin health. The heat wave continues, and is talking about that. Sun umbrellas have surged. Sales and parasols at eMart rose about 25%. Online shopping has reported a 42% increase in the same period. So yeah, it is absolutely crazy. What's notable is more men are joining the trend because it's damn hot. That's why they're joining it. A search for men's parasols returned over 40,000 results. The gendered image of parasols has softened to the point that the National Institute of Korean Language recently updated its dictionary definition, removing the phrase usually or used mainly by women. And what happened was, this TikTok creator claims parasols are rooted in racism. Amid the growing popularity, a video entitled Asians Afraid of Being Dark was recently uploaded to TikTok. In it, a black female TikToker questions the widespread use of parasols among Asians to avoid sun exposure. Someone needs to explain to me why Asians are so afraid of the sun, she says in the video. It's not bad if you go a little darker. She continues, the little differences in like shades that they notice in between each other and other people don't notice that. This whole conversation is absolutely stupid. Other races, we don't notice if this person is lighter or darker. So my question is if no one notices if you're lighter or darker, and because you don't use an umbrella, which is racist, but no one notices it, then how is it racist? And how do you know if nobody notices the difference of the shade? If other races don't notice if the person is lighter or darker. Y'all need to let go of whatever white supremacy thing you got going on. I'm not making that up. That's what it says right there. You all need to let go of whatever white supremacy thing you got going on, she added. This sounds like an influencer who is in desperate need of, trying to go viral. That's just that's what it sounds like. That is absolutely insane. What do you do? We're going to answer some questions here. We'll take a break from the racist umbrella thing. Henry Parkin says, do people still overnight at the Han River when it's unbearable? I don't know. That's a good question. That's kind of interesting because there's times where we went to the Han River and they have like the Troll Under the Bridge market, and they've got a bunch of vendors and food trucks and stuff like that. A lot of people will stay out there. That was a number of years ago. But a lot of people will just hang out there and eat and listen to music and shop and all that kind of stuff. It was really fun. And they go into the wee hours of the morning. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit older and I like my sleep. So yeah, we got that going on. Henry also ends up saying, the beauty standard in Korea is to be pale. Having a tan usually means that you had a job working outside, meaning simple labor. Higher wage jobs would be white collar, meaning being in an office, which is absolutely true. That's kind of the same stuff that you could experience even in the United States, is that kind of the whiter you are, trying to get this light. Everything is just not working right today. I don't know what's going on. So anyway, it ends up that, that's absolutely true. You'd kind of see that in the United States. Hell, you'd see that in countries everywhere, where if you had a tan, that meant you did manual labor. If you didn't, that means you're, exactly, a white-collar, job instead of a blue-collar. Didn't have the farmer's tan, higher education is usually associated with such jobs and so on and so forth. In Korea, Korean beauty is no joke. K-beauty is a thing, and the pale skin is a thing, and it's a thing in a lot of other countries. China, Taiwan, Philippines, it seems that the whiter is brighter, and pale is the way to go. I don't know. I like a little color. That's kind of my thing there. But and Henry nails it right here, where he says it's just how it developed. Calling it racist is so silly. I know. It is. Let me see if I can find out. Let me see if we can find out. Is this it? Yeah, here it is. And it's in Korean, so we're going to see if we can't get, I think we got going on here. Yeah. Let's take a look at this. This is in Korean, and it's going to be talking about, the heat wave and everything that's going on. And it says, as the heat wave continues and parasol use increases around the world, a Western influence sparked controversy by claiming that Asians are afraid of being dark, stems from white supremacy. That is actually crazy. In the video, a black woman wonders why Asians hate tanning so much, saying a little bit of sun exposure doesn't make them tan. She then claimed other races don't feel much of a difference even if they hide a little, and this is white supremacy. The video attracted probably a lot of attention, reaching 600,000 views and 620 billion comments. Most netizens immediately reacted negatively. The idea that Yongshan is connected, or that parasols are connected to white supremacy, are absolutely insane. It's absolutely crazy. But then again, that's what people end up doing, is trying to get famous on the interwebs. It's unfortunate. And again, her whole statement stems from the fact that, going back to what it says here, it's not that bad if you go a little darker. The little differences in like shades that they notice in between each other. Other people don't notice that. Other races, we don't notice if this person is lighter or darker. So if you're of a different race, then how do you know that why are you telling them not to use the umbrella? And then why are you calling the umbrella racist if other people don't notice if it's lighter or darker? And who cares? And seriously, when did common sense, why is this even in the news? I don't get this. There used to, before the advent of the internet, you would have people that would act like this, crazy people and whatever, and saying crazy, stupid things. And it'd be like, oh, that's just a crazy neighborhood person. And nobody would give that person the time of day. And unfortunately now with social media, anybody that says anything controversial to try to get clout, let's throw the racist word out there against Asians. It just makes you wonder. It's like, what in the world is going on? So apparently umbrellas are racist, according to some people. I don't get it. I told my wife about this, and she just shook her head and rolled her eyes. She said it was absolutely insanely stupid. Henry says, Korean take beauty seriously. Obviously, it has a dark side, people being overlooked for promotions, not getting a job because they aren't seen as attractive. But yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, there is, and even in the United States, there is this stigma. I remember, what was it, like a 60 Minutes or one of those investigative news shows where it had people who had the exact same resumes as everybody else, except you ended up having a good-looking person. We ended up having a good-looking person, not somebody like me, and then you had somebody that was kind of like average-looking or less than desirable in regards to beauty standards, and the exact same resume, answered the exact same way as they, and obviously the beautiful people would get hired more. And then there's other studies that were done that if you wear glasses, people think of you as being more intelligent. There's a lot of things to be said about appearance, but unfortunately that is a thing. So in Korea, Henry can obviously knows about this. Surgical procedures for plastic surgery are huge here in Korea. They will do the double eyelid surgery, they'll do the jaw, sculpting, and they'll put everything and lift everything up. They'll do the nose jobs. It is huge here in Korea, very huge. And parents will give their kids plastic surgery as graduation presents because they realize that not only do they need high scores in college entrance exams, and along with high school and junior high and elementary. There's entrance exams for preschool in Korea. Can you believe that? I mean, you got some preschools where it's like, yeah, your kid's not going anywhere. But then they have other preschools that you have to put in a resume. You have to have interviews. Your kid has to be as sharp as a tack. And it just continues on. And beauty kind of goes along that same way. So there's a lot of parents that will give their kids plastic surgery so that they won't get bullied, so that they'll belong, so that they'll fit in. And then with that, you got to have the right clothes, you got to have the right phone, you got to have the newest stuff. And that has really driven a lot of consumer debt in Korea. So there's a lot of superficial stuff going on here in Korea. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, but the good thing is that it's starting to rain here in Korea, and with that, we can put away our racist umbrellas. So yeah, let's jump into the next bit here. Korea on high alert amidst heavy rain forecast. Look at all those racist umbrellas. It just, I don't know. So here's my question: is the umbrella racist just because you use it during the sunny times of the year? According to that TikToker, she said, yeah, because of the shade that no one can notice. The logic doesn't even follow. But if it rains, does that mean that your umbrella is no longer racist? Inquiring minds need to know. And we really need to know on what is the deal with the racist umbrellas. And is it only during rain? What if it snows and you use an umbrella? Is your umbrella racist then, or is it just kind of like it does a little bit of both? I don't know. It just the world we live in, it's absolutely insane at times. So anyway, people walking around with unracist umbrellas, we're going to assume that. Heavy rain is expected in most of the regions on Sunday, which was yesterday. Today is Monday morning here in Korea. Up to 150 millimeters forecast in southern areas. A lot of rain in provinces. Jeju during the day gradually spread to the southeastern and central regions before covering most of the countries, which is exactly what we experienced yesterday. Kind of got cloudy, kind of got dark, started raining last evening, and woke up and we're not getting a lot of rain right now, but we're supposed to get it a little bit later on today. Rainfall is expected to continue through Tuesday with precipitation reaching up to 150 millimeters in southern regions, including southern port of Busan, or Pusan, however you say it. I've heard people say both, and those are from Koreans. Central regions, 100 millimeters of rain. Heavy downpours of 50 to 80 per hour are expected night along parts of the coast of South Jeolla province around Mount Jiri and Jeju's mountainous areas. Strong winds, 20 meters per second. I don't know what that is in freedom units. Emergency response, a lot of flooding. We've seen that happen before recently here. And it's just we're just getting hit with rain and sun and rain. Daily temperatures 29 to 34, slightly higher than seasonal norms. So we're going to get a lot of rain, but just be happy that your umbrellas are not racist when it's raining. So it's okay to pull those out. Let's see what we got going on. Oh, we got some other discussion here. Let's see. Henry pops up again and says, but it has nothing to do with racism. Going back to the racist umbrellas, we live in a time where people keep shouting wolf. Just because democracy allows you to express your opinion doesn't mean you have to. This is absolutely true. And really, you can have an opinion, but I think it really deals with getting clout on the internet, trying to get a viral video, trying to make money, trying to become somebody, because a lot of people just don't want to work anymore. They want the easy money. Hey, I get it. I want easy money too. But at the expense of showing your stupidity and the logic that doesn't follow, Henry pops up and says, they probably meant that in preferring staying pale white, you're expressing your dislike for brown and black. It's actually people expressing their own insecurities. And that last little part is important. We can't take it seriously. You can't take none of that seriously. I don't know. I've been in the United States. I've been down south during my time in the military. Been in Georgia. Been in Atlanta. Been in Louisiana. I've seen a lot of black folks using umbrellas. Just saying. Does that mean that they're racist? The cringe is hard. The cringe is deep. Oh man. It's just so much going on. Let's retire the racist umbrella. I don't know. It's only racist when the sun shines. Apparently, not when it's not when it rains or snows. Sparky says LYM. Not sure what that means, but yeah. Henry Park pops up and says, "Yeah, the internet is social spotlight that everybody tries to squeeze into. What a circus!" Yeah, and I mean, I'm on the internet, but I'm not making crazy and wildly stupid statements. It's, man. Sparky pops up and says, "It's sure hot here in Seoul." Yeah, you guys have been getting the brunt of it. Was it like 40 degrees the other day? I was like, holy crow, Seoul is just. But then you got all the concrete, the buildings, and it's just rough. That you definitely need the racist umbrellas in Seoul. So go drive on with those umbrellas, folks. Who cares what anybody else says? Yeah, let's get into real estate. Real estate is kind of interesting because, we bought our apartment here in Korea. We live close to Pyeongtaek, close to Camp Humphreys in Onjungri, or Pangsong-up, if you want to be really specific. We live there, or here, there. We're here, you're there, and we enjoy it. 4-bedroom, 2-bath. We got a screaming deal on it, and I never buy real estate without getting a good deal. And this one just... we were just going to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it ends up that this 4-bedroom, 2-bath popped up, and I had done a lot of research on real estate, looking at prices and the averages and so on and so forth throughout the years. And when this came up for like $40,000, $50,000, or $60,000 less than the normal price, I knew that we had a motivated seller, and it was past the budget that I wanted to spend. We had the money. I mean, we always have the money, but we have a budget set. But this was above our planned budget. But it was such a good deal that we ended up getting that. So the question is now, a lot of people, where is real estate going in Korea? And a lot of people have gotten rich in Korea, mainly up in Seoul. But with that, even in certain areas like we are now, like Brownstone Apartments, close to Camp Humphreys, e.g. the one in Asan Technical Valley, and some other places, you have some villas that are around that support the military base for off-post housing and contractors and their families, all of that. Those prices have gone up as well. Matter of fact, we bought this at about $50,000 less than the normal pricing for our place, or is our primary residence, and now it's up like another $50,000. So, yeah, real estate is going up, and unfortunately, in Korea, I think a lot of people are thinking that real estate is just going to continue to go up and up and up and up, which it is so far, but there's going to be a lot of problems because eventually you're going to price out the majority of people because the housing is too expensive. So let's take a look at real estate because I'm thinking about buying another apartment as a rental property. Obviously, I'm not going to be buying in Seoul for a couple of reasons. One, it's way too expensive. And two, as Sparky says, it's too damn hot. So let's go ahead and we'll jump into this. Talks about sleep tomorrow, but invest like crazy. Why apartments are the hot get-rich-quick scheme in Korea. And, oh yeah, look at that. There's the Han River there. There's Namsan Tower. That's a nice coffee shop. In the Ramian One Bailey apartment complex. Oh, they got a coffee shop in their apartment complex. Oh, and it's close to the river. So that is massive expensive. Let's see. Can we make this bigger? There we go. Well, that's a little bit too big. The real estate market is crazy. Apartment prices rise faster than salaries. Some middle-class investors are venturing into high-stakes games to chase the rewards. Jung Chi-woo, an office worker, made a windfall of around 800 million won, or 580,000 US dollars, from a single apartment investment in the upscale Sokcho district in southern Seoul in just 2 years since the purchase. That is insane. And I'm wondering how the tax profits work. If they have something similar to the United States, where if you live in it for 2 years, 2 out of 5 years, then you get tax-free from the profits. I don't know. That's an interesting question. If anybody does know that, put that in the comment section. But the profit came at a heavy price, nearly 70% of his household income straight to the interest payments. So he got a mortgage, paying on the interest payments, not even paying the principal, 70% of his income. So where was he staying? That is crazy. Maybe he's staying with his parents or something like that. But that is definitely he's doing it. Still, he's not slowing down. His next goal is to buy an apartment in Seoul's most coveted neighborhood, the riverside along Apju-jong in the Gangnam district. Or Banpo in Socho district. Yeah, Gangnam, that is huge, that is massively. I've seen people around me who became billionaires through apartment investments and not through stock trading. They didn't set to get out rich. Basically, they just bought the property, and a few years later, then ends up they paid it off, and they ended up they're rich after they sell it. Korea's strong real estate has made Seoul a city with the most expensive apartments, which in Korea refers specifically to high-rise multi-unit residential buildings, trailing only Hong Kong, Zurich, and Singapore. So these places can get expensive. A unit price in Seoul costs about $22,875 per square meter, or $2,125 per square foot. That is insane. Up 35% from 5 years earlier, beating cities like New York, London, according to the Deutsche Bank Research Institute. Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. It's a problem that is really serious because President Lee Jae-myung in June has imposed strict loan regulations on home purchases. Because basically what's happening is we're having this hamster wheel, runaway real estate pricing thing going on. And so what ends up happening is that everybody's like, oh, real estate. And then they buy apartments and they leverage up to the hilt. And there's a thing, kind of a saying that Koreans are cash poor, but real estate rich. That's kind of a thing. And so they'll get mortgages, they'll buy an apartment, and then they hold on to that apartment, and the prices just keep going up and up. And then you loan more, you get more money, and you buy another apartment, and then prices keep going up. So the banks are making money. So as long as they're making money, they're going to go ahead and give those loans. Property prices go up because the banks are lending money, and so it's just kind of this runaway thing that we got going on. And this is also spurred on by the fact that the rental system here in Korea, called jeonse, is a thing where about 70% of the properties that are rented using the jeonse system. So in other words, you're going to put down a massive down payment. And that down payment, not like the United States, is it's like between 50 and 80% of the retail price of the property. Yeah, it is a huge deposit. But the thing is, you do the contract for 2 years, and during that 2-year contract, because you gave the landlord a buttload of money, that you're not going to have a monthly payment, and so you're living there rent-free, basically. But the landlord takes that huge 50 to 80% of the retail price huge deposit, and what they'll do, what a lot of them will do, will take that money, and then they'll go to the bank and they'll say, hey, well, I've got this money here. I want to invest. I want to buy another apartment. And the banks are like, oh, okay, well, you got your primary residence. You've got this apartment. It's rented out, and you've got deposit money. So you want to put that down in addition with a little bit of extra money that you have, and you can buy a second apartment. Okay, cool. Well, now the question is, under jeonse, after that 2-year contract, what happens to the tenant? Well, that tenant gets their massive deposit back. So here's the rub. The landlord who bought a second apartment will rent that apartment out and will get a huge deposit. They'll take that deposit from the second apartment tenant and give it to the first apartment tenant. The first apartment tenant gets their deposit back, and then they leave, or they can do another 2-year contract. And then, so you rent out the first apartment again, you get another huge deposit, landlord takes that and gets a third apartment. And so there's this shell game that is going on, that if you have multiple apartments, that you're gonna, it's a risk to buy another apartment. But real estate is in such a high performing way here in Korea, and the majority of people live in apartments, the shell game of moving around deposits and robbing from Peter to pay Paul, which you think would be an illegal pyramid scheme like we see in the United States sometime, it is a normal thing. And for the most part, landlords will pay back their tenants that huge deposit money. And then the tenant they can renew their contract, or they can go somewhere else and go to a better apartment or whatever it is. That's kind of the way the thing goes. There is risks in this. And with that being said, there's insurance for that, because there have been times where landlords do not pay back that huge deposits because maybe they took the money and they used it for other things and it didn't work out. Maybe it was a business idea. Koreans will do that. They'll take that deposit money. They'll open up a business. The business fails because not all businesses make it. And then they don't have money to give to the tenants when their contract is up, and that causes a lot of problems. Well, they have insurance for the Jeonsei system, but there's a lot of Koreans that don't get that insurance, and it's not much. But still, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But that's the Jeonsei system. And with that has helped fuel this record real estate boom that we've got going on here in Korea, where you've got landlords that had one apartment, and then they get two, then they get three, then they get four, and there's, it happened in the United States as well. There was times I was involved in investment real estate, and I had like 20 different loans in my name for different properties. Yeah, and it was like, how did I get all those loans? I mean, I wasn't making much money. It was, I had my pension from the military, but it wasn't enough to not work. I had to work because I still couldn't pay all my bills. So I was doing, construction jobs and rehab jobs and stuff like that. So, but the banks at that time, because real estate was always making money and they were always making money, they can make loans. Real estate goes up, they make more loans. Real estate goes up, they make more loans, until the secondary mortgage market, and anybody that if you could breathe and you didn't have to have any income verification, as long as, hell, there was jokes that this guy put his dog in for a loan application and it got approved. But all of that came crashing down in the United States, and other countries have experienced that as well. So, it's a very interesting thing, but now you're getting to the point of where the prices of real estate are so high that let's say the tenant, it's just higher and higher deposits, which makes people not want to rent as much, but they have to go somewhere. The other problem is that is going to come about, and it's already happened a little bit, is a correction in the real estate market, is when property prices go down, which means that the large deposit that a prospective tenant has to pay the landlord, okay, that's good for them. So the landlord gets that reduced deposit, but he's going to use that to pay back a previous tenant that gave a large deposit, and now he's short. So what do you do now? Well, that whole house of cards has happened where landlords, through a series of tenants and the drop of real estate prices, have absolutely ruined landlords and investors here in Korea, to the point of where they lost absolutely everything. And because these people didn't have insurance for the Jeonsei deposit, they lost out on their money, on their huge deposit, and it's really caused a big problem here in Korea. It's not as widespread. Again, it's not as widespread as it seems, but it does happen. So that is a consideration. Henry pops up and says, how risky is it to become a landlord in Korea in terms of financial commitments, repairs, maintenance, insurance, or people just trashing the unit or just disappearing without paying rent? Well, the thing with the rental options here in Korea is you have that Jeonsei system, which makes up about 70% of the rental market here in Korea. And then you have the Wolsei, which is a smaller deposit, a much smaller deposit, but then the tenant also has to pay a small monthly amount. So there's that. And then more and more landlords are going for properties kind of similar to in the United States, of just doing a small deposit and doing a higher monthly rent. So we get a good mix of this, but with this, a lot of hype on the Jonesay and the hype of the ever rising, property prices, which is detrimental because you're pricing a lot of people out of housing, and that's going to cause a crisis. That the current president ends up saying, "Hey, we need to pull the reins on this," and so what he has instructed the banks to do is to tighten up lending regulations, which had a small little effect, but not to the point of where it's really, really slowing it down. So prices are still going through the roof. How long is this going to go? I don't know. It might end up being like Hong Kong. It might, Singapore and all of these high-speed cities where real estate is just absolutely insane. You're going to get to this point of where it's going to cap out. It's going to. But when you're talking about places like Gangnam and those high-end areas of Seoul, I think we'll still experience increasing property prices. Absolutely. Just like you'll see in major cities around the world, property just keeps going up and up and up, and only the really rich people can afford those prices. It's insane. But going back to Henry's question, which I didn't even answer. Sorry about that, Henry. How risky is it? Repairs, maintenance, it's not bad. We've lived here 2.5 years, and we're talking about, repairs and maintenance. Hasn't been bad at all. They're really sturdy. Our apartment that we live in is like 8 or 9 years old, something like that. The building is really nice. There's maintenance. Of course, we have an apartment fee every month, which does the landscaping, elevator maintenance, keeping the grounds up for the guards, has cleaning staff, the whole 9 yards. It's a really nice apartment complex. And repairs and maintenance, not bad at all. And for the most part, having done investment real estate in the United States and dealing with tenants, and especially in Colorado, oh my gosh, unless it's high-end properties, you're going to have tenants that will trash, especially on the lower end of the spectrum, like Section 8 and a little bit above that. You're going to have, and it seems like the magic number is kind of around $750, $1,000 back when we were doing it. If you could get $750 or more a month, this was many years ago, you would get good quality tenants. Below that, you're going to get some crappy tenants. But now that rental prices have increased in the United States, what was like low back then, like $500 a month, that has gone up to, $700, $800, $1,000 a month, and you're getting crappy tenants in that. But as far as maintenance, insurance isn't bad. It's really less expensive than the United States. Trashing properties, let's face it, folks, Koreans are more well-behaved, they're more respectful, they're more mature, they're more civil, in my experience, than people in the United States. I hate to say it, and especially when it comes to real estate investing in the rental market, we did rentals, we did rehabs, we flipped some properties. I worked on over 60 properties when I was in the United States, aside from my personal deals of where I would move into a crappy property and I would rehab it myself and live in it, and then 2 years later sell it and get tax-free profit. But yeah, it's not bad. It's rare that you see Korean tenants trashing properties. It's really rare. And again, this kind of goes back to the Jonsei system, is you're putting down such a huge deposit that if you trash the apartment, you could lose your deposit. So, there's the other side of the coin. It's actually kind of a good system, because then people who have saved and invested, and some people even for their large deposit will take out loans. So they have a vested interest to not trash the apartment. So that's kind of the good side of that. Does anybody disappear without paying rent? Again, with the Jonsei system, you're there for a contract of 2 years and you don't have to pay a monthly rent, so that's really a non-issue. But then you have the Wolsei system, which you're paying a smaller deposit and you pay a monthly rent. Obviously, there are people that run into hard times and they can't pay their rent and they lose their deposit. There's also monthly rentals, as well. And then you have office tels in really small places, kind of like college dorms or whatever. Office tels that might be 10 square meters. Really, really small places, usually college students or single kids. Lower prices in rent. Yeah, some people don't pay their rent, but then they get kicked out. And but I think it's a lot. There's not as many of those problems in Korea as there is in the United States. In the United States, in what I experienced. So yeah, there's times where we had properties that were just absolutely trashed. We're talking that the garage is, when people are having problems and they can't pay their rent, that is a huge red flag for whatever reason. Life happens. But we had properties where they couldn't pay the rent. So the red flag is if you can't pay the rent, you can't pay the water, you can't pay the trash. I remember we had this one property that had a oversized 2-car garage, and it ends up these people weren't paying rent. And of course, unfortunately, the eviction process is often geared towards the tenant in overprotecting tenants and really kind of leaving the landlord out to dry, because when you can't evict a tenant, you can't make your mortgage payment. So it's an undue hardship, but the courts don't seem to understand that. Many of them are like, oh, the poor tenants, oh, you got to, 60, 90, up to a half year or more, depending on how the tenants play, they can live in your property rent-free. It is, and some investors have just gotten to the point of where it's like, hey, I'll pay you $5,000 if you just leave, because the eviction process is such a hassle. But yeah, it's compared what we experienced in the United States and saw in our business versus Korea. Koreans are just so much more respectful and law-abiding and mature and civil. It's polite. It's not as big as a problem. So let's say Henry pops up again and he says, is there a bubble being created? People who can't pay back those loans. Are Koreans banks looking away and hoping for the best, like the U.S. during the 2000s? Well, there is a bubble in regards to the pricing of properties, but I think those are in the higher end areas here in Korea, like Seoul, Gangnam, all of those places that they talk about, the high end markets. Everybody wants to go to Seoul. That's the thing. And is there going to be a bubble? Away from Seoul, you're not going to get so much of a bubble unless there's a high demand rental areas, kind of like in the area that we're in. Property prices are high because of the rental market provided by the local military base. But I think eventually we're going to see a bubble, and there's going to be a correction in the market probably in the next two to 3 years, I would think. The current president here in Korea has already told the banking sectors to tighten up the lending regulations to kind of slow this massive influx of people buying multiple properties and so on and so forth. It's having a tiny effect, but I don't think it's enough of an effect to make a difference, because property prices in Seoul are still going up crazy. And then even though some Koreans, not as many Koreans are buying properties, that's when foreigners are buying properties from overseas. They're buying properties here in Korea. So I think there'll be a bubble. I think it'll come to a head. And I'm not a professional. There's Korean market people that are saying, oh, the sky is going to fall and Korea's going to, no longer be a country. And then you've got more liberal and more flexible saying, well, there'll be a market correction. It won't be too bad. Then they'll be like, oh, real estate will always go up. So you get this wide variety of thoughts and ideas. But I think there's going to be a market correction. Will it be enough to be advantageous to us as we buy another apartment and rent it out? I don't think so. Because the rent is going to be, like in this area, rent is tied towards the overseas housing allowance of the military and the contractors that are here in Korea. So the rent is going to be what it's going to be. So whether I buy another rental, another apartment, whether it's, $300,000 or $250,000, the rent is going to be the same. So the only difference is that, yes, if I pay in cash, my return on investment, if I have to pay more for that property, is going to be a little bit less, but it's paid off. If it's paid off, it's paid off. Yeah, I might lose a few percent, but the rent is going to be the rent as long as the military is here, and it's going to be here for quite some time. So, yeah, it all depends on location. It comes back to that saying, location, location, location. Henry asks a question and says, is there some type of condo board in your building that manages maintenance, repairs of the buildings as a whole? Deciding about condo fees, do you participate in regular meetings? Yes, actually there is. There is a management office. There's elected officials of the apartment complex that will, and they have apartment fees. Think of it kind of like HOA fees, except not as stupid as the United States. Really, it's just about the basic maintenance of the property, elevator maintenance, ground maintenance, electrical maintenance, painting of the buildings. We just had our apartment building painted, and it looks beautiful, looks brand new. So they'll come through, they'll do checks on the gas lines and the gas coming into the individual units. They'll do testing. Part of the process of the apartment fee is to do that, but also the elevator maintenance, the electricity for the elevators and the outside grounds and all of that, groundskeepers, security, taking care of the underground parking and so on and so forth, all the lights and everything. And we also have security personnel as well. So, yeah, as far as like participating in meetings, you can contact the representatives and stuff like that and kind of voice your concerns. But it's not like a crazy HOA thing. It's like, hey, keep the apartment nice, do the regular maintenance, so on and so forth. We spray, the drains and everything with, disinfectants, every other month, or I think it's like once a month or whatever it is. They do that and just keep it going, And different apartments will have different levels of that based on their HOA. So our apartment complex has like 960 or 916 units in it. It's large for this area. And we got multiple staff members, multiple cleaning staff that are around the property. They'll do the grass cutting. They'll contract people to cut the grass and do the landscaping and trees. They got fountains and everything, so, picnic areas, barbecue grills, all of that, children's play areas. They maintain all of this stuff. And some places don't have that. So they have less amenities than other apartment complexes. We actually have a gym, weight room, some machines, some treadmills, a yoga thing going on. They got a little practice driving range thing. That's a little bit of extra money. It's like $5,000 extra a month or whatever. But yeah, it all depends. There are some apartment complexes where they don't have elevators. It's just stairs, very minimal, the smallest amount. But those are usually the apartment buildings that you're looking probably 10, 15, 20 years old, that you're not going to have all of the bells and whistles like you do with the one we got here. So as far as participating as an apartment owner, my wife and I, we do get to voice or vote on situations or things that pop up, like the color scheme of the apartment complex. They'll come up and they'll say, hey, well, here's 3 different color schemes that, and they'll do mock-ups and show the pictures, and you get to vote on which color scheme. And then as a whole of the apartment complex, whoever gets the majority vote, democracy, then they'll go with that color scheme. So, yeah, there's that. Let's see, what do we got going? Oh, another question. A lot of questions about the apartment. Do condos in your building have a smoke detector? Is it even mandatory? Buying property in a shared building with strangers, the nightmare is always that somebody else starts a fire in their unit. That's absolutely true. That is a consideration. But being that this is a commercial property or an apartment complex like you would see in the United States, we do have smoke detectors. We have gas detectors for the gas that is used for the heating in the floors, the Ondal heating, and then also for the cooking gas, the gas that comes in for the gas ranges. They will come in and inspect those. So, yeah, there's detectors on that. And then also we have, I don't know if you can see it up in the ceiling, but we got one there, and there's one there of a sprinkler system. So it's really like an industrial apartment complex that you would see in the United States. So if there ever is a fire, you're going to get the sprinkler system go on. Of course, it's going to drench everything. It's stagnant water. It's going to stink to high heaven, and you're going to lose everything. But they do have insurance. And we have insurance on our property. And if somebody else's unit, a fire starts because they don't know how to cook ramen or whatever, and the fire comes to ours, we have insurance to deal with that, but they should have insurance, but they are also liable for that as well. So you're kind of covered in both of those things. And the insurance isn't expensive. But I'm surprised in the fact there are a lot of Koreans that don't get the insurance because the apartment complex also has insurance. So if the apartment complex is at fault and is liable for a fire, say the wiring is messed up in the apartment or whatever, and it's not due to the tenant or anything like that, the apartment complex has insurance that will pay for those damages. So, but there's a lot of Koreans that don't get apartment insurance, like renter's insurance. There's a ton of them that don't. There's people in my wife's family who have lived in the same apartment for like 15, 20 years. They don't have insurance. And apartment fires are rare, very rare. So that's another reason why they don't like paying that little extra money. But it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Another good question. Henry pops up and says, is building a home outside of Seoul even financially viable? Yeah, there are some people that do that. And since a lot of people usually want to go to Seoul, but then there are some people that are like, I want to get away from it all, kind of like retirees like myself, living farther away from those bigger cities. You can find better prices on apartments, but you can also find houses. But the houses are generally more expensive, and it's not really a thing. The majority of people who live in Korea live in apartments, and it's not so much the houses it's the opposite in the United States. So you could build a home. There's people that rehab old farmhouses and things like that and make it basically like brand new. There's people that have bought land here in Korea. They get an old farmhouse, they scrape it, they build a new house on there. They have the money to do that. That is definitely an option. So you're out in the country, you're away from people because you don't like people. That is a thing. It's just not as much of a thing here in Korea because again, everybody lives in apartments. That's kind of the deal. But there are houses, and is it viable? Yeah, it's definitely viable. There's a number of people that I know who live out in the country, retirees. Guys who retired from the military or different service, have lifetime pension, their spouse has Korean ancestry, so they come back on the F4 or F1 visa or the F5, 6 or whatever visa there is, and yeah, they choose to live out into the country. The problem is with the declining population and the increased aging population that we have here in Korea, a lot of those outlying country places, populations are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which on one hand would be good because property prices are going down, but on the other hand, there's a problem because you don't have the population to support the government of that small town. And so the infrastructure and roads and the upkeep and all those things, that's kind of rough. And so Korea's going through that with the super aging population. The other thing that Korea is experiencing is that there are some older people that are leaving Seoul and some of these other cities, and they're moving. The government's trying to get people to move to these rural areas to kind of, we got to, try to do this. And so there are some older people that are moving to those country areas, and with the lower prices in real estate, some of them get tax credits or whatever. So that is possible doing the same thing. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. But it's very, very interesting. And with the super aged population that we have, there's definitely a lot of towns where there are no children. Absolutely. No children there's a number of small towns that don't have any children. All the kids are gone. Schools have closed down. Entire school districts There's one I was reading that it had like 17 different schools, and it kind of got down, and now there's only like one school. And then after all those kids graduate, there's no more kids. So there goes, that's all gone. So the city government is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and the population is shrinking. People are dying off, getting older. The younger people that were there all want better jobs, so they move away from these little podunk towns, and it is what it is. So, Henry's got another question. Henry's full of questions today. Do the condos in your building have smoke detector? Yep. Yeah, we talked about that. Okay, good. I thought that was another one. I just wasn't paying attention. Sorry about that. But yes, we do have smoke detectors. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's do this one. The declining population problem is something I forgot. Yeah, small towns are under pressure to offer basic infrastructure. You should be more and more on your own, like being in the middle of Montana. Yeah, that's true. But even then, there is a point of how long are you going to stay living out in the sticks? All it takes is a medical emergency. In a lot of these places, besides there not being the city infrastructure, or the city infrastructure has shrunk, some has even gone down to nothing. Even if you live up in a mountain property, let's say you got your own road, like you live in Colorado, Montana, or those places like that, do the off-grid thing or whatever. You're talking about medical services. If the town is shrunk and the similar small towns have shrunk, usually it'll be hard to find hospitals, medical services, and things like that. And then there comes to a point of where, yeah, you can live off-grid, but eventually we're going to have some declining health. It's great to live off-grid and be away from people. I totally get that. I don't like people for the most part. But with that, have a stroke, have a heart attack, some medical emergency, and next thing you know, you're going to need a lot of medical care. If you're out in the country and you're living in the sticks and you're away from people and you're loving it, hey, the weather's cooler up here in my mountain property, blah, blah, blah. But then you have a stroke or something else, and it's like, well, now I need to go see a doctor 2 or 3 times a month or more, and I need medications and all that. How long is it going to take you to get to a good hospital, get to the pharmacy? There comes that time of where, yeah, you're young and you do all your stuff, and then you live out in the sticks, and then you have declining health, and then you have to go to some place where you can get some medical care, maybe even assisted medical care or assisted living help. So what do? Then you got to downsize, and then you move closer to the hospitals and the grocery stores and where things can be delivered. That's the great thing about Korea, is that you can order anything and get it delivered. We could do all our grocery shopping from our phone, but when you're talking about living out in the sticks, that's not really an option as much. So again, there's always, that's kind of something to think about. Sparky says, that is why we're in Seoul, as to have access to all the facilities. Yeah, that's why I like where we're at, is that we have access to the local military base, Camp Humphreys, the largest overseas U.S. military base in the world. Live right next to it. And so I have access to the commissary, the PX, emergency medical, the emergency room there. But we also have Good Morning Hospital is close by. I could do a taxi and a train and go up to Samsung Medical Center, which I've gotten treatment there. Which Sparky's in a good place, because you've got the 5 biggest and best hospitals in Korea that are in Seoul. And so you can get some excellent care. And again, access to all the facilities, pharmacies, medical, rehab, shopping, grocery, whatever. It's all up there. It is all up there. And unfortunately, a lot of places that are far outside of Seoul or bigger cities, you just don't have those things. You can start just kind of knocking those things off, and you're going to have to make some compromises. Henry says, it depends on your perspective on how you want to live your life. Some people yearn to go back to the olden times, away from people. Yep. Take that into account in case of emergency. It is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. And and then that's something that only each individual person can decide for themselves. I've known a lot of preppers and people in the United States that lived out in the sticks, off the grid. I mean, like totally off grid. No, they make their own electricity. They don't have nothing. They have wood-fueled boilers to heat their water. They grow their own food, have their own animals, and raise turkeys and chickens and whatever. They do all of it. They're totally off grid. But I also know a number of these people that have gotten so aged and infirmed that they weren't able to continue that lifestyle. And so they had to sell the homestead. They had to sell the mountain property, and they had to move to places where, they had to have constant medical care. If you need assisted living help, how much is it going to cost? I mean, it's kind of expensive in the United States. And, places like Montana, it's obviously less than like New York or Los Angeles. But if you need assisted living help and somebody has to drive 2 or 3 hours to get to your, or more to your mountain property to help take care of you, you're going to pay for that. So again, it's totally fine if you want to do that, but there's going to be a cost, and there's eventually going to be a time of either you're just going to not wake up and that the problem is solved, or you're going to be in such a declined state of health that you're going to have to make that decision. And either you're going to decide, no, I don't want any help, and just ride it out, and then you're done, you just don't wake up, or you downsize and have to go to other places. And then that also brings into question for guys, we're like, oh, screw it, I'm going to live up here until I die. Well, that's fine. I totally get that, I would totally do a mountain property thing. But when I pass, statistically, men die sooner than women. And with that, can my wife handle the mountain property? Probably not. And especially if you get into the older ages and get really infirmed, and the women, you just can't, some of them can. Some of them can do it. Again, it's going to come down to a personal choice. But, I've just seen way too many people where, yeah, I'm going to do that lifestyle, and then eventually it's like, they had to move back into town. Husband died, wife had to move back into town, close to the kids so they could keep an eye on her, get assisted living because of medical problems and appointments and so on and so forth. They had to downsize and do all that. But again, it's a case-by-case basis. And if there's an emergency and you don't make it, then, you made that choice, and, well, you made the choice, and there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. Do what you want to do. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Let's see. Man, we kind of gone off the thing here. Let's talk about this last thing, presidential underwear. You might be wondering about presidential underwear. We got sidetracked on living in apartments and condos and all that stuff, which are excellent questions, by the way. Very excellent questions. Questions that we asked ourselves before we came and retired here in Korea. So, yeah, we did a lot of research, but you still don't get the full meal deal until you get boots on the ground. There's a lot of things that you just can't research. The only way you can know those things is by living those things. We've been doing that for over 2.5 years now, and it's working out good. But presidential underwear, what are we talking about this? What is going on? This situation stems from the last president here in Korea, President Yoon. He ended up, he didn't do so well. He ended up declaring martial law. He tried to kick out government representatives and officials out of this building to where they had to come and vote on certain things. Well, he knew that they wouldn't want to vote a certain way, so he declared martial law and told the military to keep these people out of the building so they couldn't vote, as if that was really going to work. And just to let you know, martial law here in Korea has never been associated with, hey, that's a good idea. It has always resulted in people's rights being squashed, and traitors and it's just not a good thing. So when he declared martial law, it wasn't for a good reason. In my opinion, it wasn't for a good reason. So anyway, he got removed from office. We got the new president now, but the old president is going through some stuff, and we're going to take a look at that. So here it is. Ex-President Yoon resists detention attempt wearing only underwear. Special counsel. Yeah. This is interesting. Jailed former President Yoon Suk Yeol on Friday resisted a special counsel team's attempt to detain him by lying on the floor of his prison cell wearing only his underwear. Seriously? You were the president of Korea. Yeah, you got kicked out and you got impeached and you got kicked out. But you resort to basically throwing a tantrum in your underwear and saying, no, I'm not going to do it like a toddler. Here's the thing. Let me take a swig because we're going to get deep into this. So good. I worked in prisons for over 11 years. I was a knuckle dragon guard. I worked up through the ranks. I was a lieutenant. I've cuffed people up. I've been involved in riots. I've seen some horrible things happen. I've seen staff members die in prison because of inmate actions and so on and so forth. It is a rough job. And with that being said, I've been in medium restricted facilities. I've helped out working in Colorado Max state prisons. Where you had people like Marvin Gray and some crazy people. I've had inmates that were murderers, rapists, the PDF people, bad people, dope slingers, drug runners, gangs, Norteños, Sureños, the Aryan Brotherhood, the whole 9 yards. I've seen this type of mentality. And if they don't get their way, they throw a fit, and they'll do exactly what the president did. President Yoon, I've sat on the floor and sprawled out in his underwear. No, I'm not going to do it. So I just find this is just absolutely insane. Had a moment of insanity, thought, screw it. Let's keep going with crazy. What's he doing? Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. And it just shows you how unhinged he is. Special assistant prosecutor and investigator from a special counsel sought to execute a detention warrant for Yoon at Seoul Detention Center south of the capital after he repeatedly snubbed summonses. How do you snub a summons if you're in prison and you're detained in a cell? I don't get it. They withdrew, but 2 hours later, however, saying they had gone as far as outside Yoon's cell to direct prison officers to bring him out, but failed. The special counsel team advised that he voluntarily comply with the detention warrant execution, considering he's a former president, but the suspect adamantly refused while lying on the floor without wearing his prison uniform. In other words, he's in his presidential underwear. The team made the same demand 4 times in 20 to 30-minute intervals before suspending the effort, determining the use of physical force could lead to an accident. In the process, the team notified the subject that it would complete the execution of the detention warrant next time, including by using physical force. What? This reminds me of, we've gotten so soft, not only here in Korea, but we've gotten, definitely soft in the United States. Hopefully we can get this back. CB comes up, they should have done an extraction. Yeah, been there, done that. I have been on teams where you get all suited up in the gear and a riot shield, and you go into the cell, and everybody goes and gets the guy who has a makeshift weapon, is oiled up his body, is nothing, stark naked. It's got shampoo all over, so he's slippery. Some of them, if they don't have that, they'll put feces all over themselves and they'll put it on the floor. And yeah, it's not a really enjoyable task to do those things because people get hurt, but there's no result. You have to use force to do this. And this usually happens, we'd experienced this when people wouldn't want to leave their cell, they didn't want to go to court because they were facing other charges, or they were just being monumentally stupid. And you had to do a cell extraction. So, yeah, but the way that this is phrased, do this, and no, I'm not going to do this. It reminds me of that movie, Demolition Man. Remember with Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone, where Wesley Snipes is the bad guy and he's in the hypersleep and he wakes up, and then society is evolved to the point of where everybody is so soft that the police show up and it's like, stop what you're doing. And it's like, Wesley Snipes turns around, gives a snide remark, and the police guy goes on his handheld thing. It says, suspect replied with a rude comment. And then the computer, the algorithm, the AI comes back and says, repeat command in a sterner voice followed by or else. And so the guy does that, and then Wesley Snipes just comes in there and just cleans everybody's clock. And, the police are watching on the CCTV, and they're like, oh, we're not used to this type of violence, I think that's where we're at. And the funny thing is that I've seen this in prison, and if you let people do it, you give them the control. The inmate should not have control on how the operations of a prison works. Because if one does it, then other prisoners will do it, and then your whole prison is just going to be in chaos. Because the other inmates are going to be saying, hey, you know what? He did it. And he got his way. I'm going to do that too. Seen it happen. Again, I worked in prisons, 2 different prisons. I worked in Territorial Correctional Facility, which is the oldest prison in Colorado. It was a prison before Colorado was a state. And then I worked on Fremont Correctional Facility, and then the Supermax, did some tours there. There was a couple other prisons. But I worked in the 2 medium R prisons, and then the one above that was the Supermax for the state prison. Not the ADX federal prison, which is also very close to where I used to live, that had really bad people. But yeah, this is absolutely insane. When you let the inmate dictate prison policy and saying, and unfortunately, this happens when you have wardens and you have policymakers that are soft and that they're kind of like, oh, there might be an accident. You know what? He's not acting in his right mind. You need to physically remove him. He made the decision. Man, it's absolutely crazy. And the fact that it's like, oh, we tried, and then, we're going to have to come back later, and then we'll use force. It just shows that they don't know what they're doing, and they have gotten soft. And there's the ex-president, and except he's wearing clothes, and we don't know what type of, if he does tighty-whities or if he does boxers, or maybe he does some skinny, kind of the little banana hammock thing. I don't know. I'm not sure. The team sought to take Yoon into their office for questioning over allegations that he and his wife, Kim Kyung-hee, meddled in candidate nominations for the parliamentary elections in 2022. The former presidents twice defiled the special counsel's summonings earlier that week, citing health problems. I've seen that before. They delivered his medical records and a doctor's note to the detention center saying he's struggling to regulate his body temperature and could go blind if his eye ailment is untreated. He just doesn't want to answer the questions. It's amazing how suddenly inmates will have all types of medical problems and things that they just don't want to do, but then they blame it on their medical conditions and or just laying around in their underwear. I just don't get it. It's just crazy. The warrant is valid until next Thursday, and the team reportedly does not plan to try to execute it again Friday. So this is all a cat and mouse game, and so obviously the ex-president and his lawyers know that this only goes until Thursday, and then once Thursday passes, they're in the clear, and so he's just going to be hanging out in his underwear until the warrant is void and they have to go get another warrant. There's some other stuff that ended up going on with him, a lot of different problems with his campaign and his charges leading to insurrection, additional charges related to the martial law that he declared that was way bad. And then his wife has had a bunch of problems as well. And the fact that a team has been tasked with investigating 19 criminal allegations against the former First Lady for real estate and investment frauds and so on and so forth. It's just absolutely crazy. And supporters for the jailed president, I just don't get it. I'm an independent. In the United States, I'm an independent. I'm still an independent. So I like ideas from the left and the right. You know, whatever gets the job done is common sense, has accountability, and is good for the people. Here in Korea, with this, the president's wife also got a degree from a high-level university, and it ends up she had like a PhD or a master's or whatever it was, and then her thesis, people looked over it after the president and her got in trouble because there was stock manipulation also involved in this as well, besides the martial law, and it found out that she plagiarized the majority of it. Isn't it interesting how, they didn't check for plagiarism when she put it in, but now that her and her husband got in trouble, now we're going to check the records, and now we're going to check her thesis, and found out that, yeah, it was all bogus. She plagiarized it, and it was big, yeah, so, I don't know. Nepotism? Anyone? Oh, the president's wife. Oh, yes, of course, let her pass. Let her get a good grade. Yeah. CB says, Tom Hardy did a great movie called Bronson. He oiled himself up in doing, when you do emergent entries. That is definitely a thing. I've experienced that more times than I want to admit. Inmates getting naked and sans clothes and oiled up with baby oil, shampoo, soap, whatever it is, feces, and then you have to go extract them and, take them to court, or maybe you have to get DNA samples, whatever it is. It's just, or they're just being stupid and they just want to fight. There's people like that. I'm just really disappointed that Yoon is doing this, but hey, he's doing it because there's a plan. And again, that warrant is only good until Thursday. And so he'll sit around in his presidential underwear until that warrant is void, and he's going to do everything he can to not answer questions, because the questions that he will answer will incriminate him. So, in a country where it can only run once for a 5-year term, how is it that Korea's system always picks the biggest prima donnas as presidents? I don't know. That's a doozy. I don't know. Lauren Robbins says, remember when rich people would roll into courtroom with a wheelchair, a bunch of bandages, and a nurse to avoid prison? Yeah, there's that. They do that. There was who's the mob boss who ended up, and he framed like dementia and stuff like that, and he kind of dressed up in like bathrobes and just just to get out from being prosecuted. Getting similar type of vibes with Yoon and this stuff. So many medical problems have arisen, that he didn't have all those problems when he was president, but now suddenly he's awash with all types of problems. But it's going to go bad for him. But being a president, I think, I think it'll be like a slap on the wrist. He's just trying to minimize the slap. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see what the government does. It really depends. Will they go hard-nosed on him? Will he be an example for other presidents and potential presidents and government officials to start doing what's right and not being corrupt and not robbing the people and using their influence to better themselves and not the people of the country? For example, the doctor's strike and all that stuff that went on that really didn't help anybody. It really hurt the Korean people as a whole. And the politicians got rich, the union leaders got rich, and the people got screwed. So, I don't know. It's just a thing. It still goes on. And talking about court, remember the Johnny Somali guy? Johnny Somali, the idiot YouTuber who, this guy here, he is in Korea, and he's been in Korea for over a year because he ended up, since we're talking about the court system, he harassed a bunch of people, he broke a bunch of laws, he's been to court a few times, and he's going to court again this month on the 13th. And so he's already pled guilty to a number of obstruction of business charges and some other things. He's got 2 deepfake videos that he's going to be charged with. There you see a picture of him with the comfort statue making an apology, which wasn't an apology. It was all BS. And there's a deepfake video of him right there, which is illegal in the United States. So that's a fake video of a young YouTuber named Bong Bong. And there it is. He posted it and he showed it. Doesn't matter if he didn't make it or not, that is illegal in Korea. And kissing is considered a sexual act. So by him distributing that, he can get up to 10 years in prison for posting that and distributing that. And he can't leave Korea until all his court cases are done, and he's a total idiot. He drinks. There he is, the one right there. On what he ended up doing is going to a Korean convenience store, ended up getting drunk, which you're not supposed to drink in the store. He's yelling, screaming, throwing food at people, and so on and so forth. Obviously, a disruption of business, and he does it all for clout and money. He's Ramzi Khalid Ismail. He's known as Johnny Somali. So he is going to have his court cases are coming up, another court case, and he's out on his own recognizance, which is really, really interesting. Excuse me. Korea will not detain you unless you did a real violent crime. So, rape, unaliving somebody. I have to be careful of the words I use on YouTube because it's a thing now. But unless it's something really serious, the Korean government is not going to use taxpayer money to keep you in prison or jail or detainment until your court date. So they left him out on his own recognizance, and he went to court. He's got like 4 charges that he pled guilty to. They're kind of like minor crimes, not like minor as young kid crimes, but they're like misdemeanor crimes. Some fines and things like that. So he did that, pled guilty. So he's already a convicted criminal in Korea. He still can't leave. He's not supposed to work, at least not work for a Korean employer. And he continues to do more crimes in Korea, which is absolutely insane. So, idiot boy here is racking up more crimes. And what it does is it just pushes back the courts and the trials 2 to 4 months every single time. So that's why he's been here for over a year and he can't leave Korea until all of his charges are done. And at the end of them all, like he's already been, he admitted guilt. He says he's guilty of those 4 crimes or whatever, but he doesn't get a punishment yet. So he has to wait until all of the other cases are done, and then they take all of that and they lump it all in together and give you one big number for a fine and one big number for your prison time and whatever else. And after your prison detainment, you're going to be deported and whatever it is. But if new charges keep popping up, the police need to investigate. The prosecutor's going to investigate, so that's going to be another 2 to 6 months added to that process. So that could push back his final sentencing another 2 to 4 months with each additional charge that comes before the court. So, it's not good. And some of the prison time has forced labor. So when the CB says, I hope Johnny loves kimchi, that's kind of the thing, is that he's going to be working in a cabbage field. It's not looking good. Not looking good for Johnny Somali. Now the question is, Korea is pretty lenient on punishments, but usually the people that do bad things will give an apology. They'll make restitution in the form of monetary amounts. They'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry for this. I didn't know what I was doing. I was stupid." They'll admit to what they did was being wrong, and then the judge takes that into consideration and give, "Oh, okay, well, he's sorry. He paid restitution, paid money to the victim, or whatever." They will usually lower the sentence on that. The problem is that Johnny has threatened the judge's wife, threatens police. He says he hates Korea. And the funny thing is, he's got all of his charges and all the crimes that he's committed. He has filmed himself doing those things. So it's not like, did he do them or didn't he? No, he did. You can see him on video for the world to see. So it's absolutely crazy. It looks like he could get some prison time. CB says he can teach English to other inmates. Well, yeah, he could. People are like, "Oh, wait until he goes to a Korean prison and all the Koreans there are going to beat him up." That's not going to happen. Guarantee you that's not going to happen, because Korea, and I knew this from my time prior in the military, where I had U.S. service members commit crimes against Korea and they end up going to Korean prison. They don't go to they go to a Korean prison, but there's no Korean inmates. Does that make sense? Let me explain. There is a foreigner-only prison in Cheonan, Korea. So in other words, if you're a foreigner residing in Korea or on vacation or whatever it is, you commit crimes and you get sentenced to prison, you will go to that foreigner-only prison. In other words, there are no Korean inmates there. There's a lot of Chinese inmates there, so he could teach English to those guys. But the majority are Chinese. You have a lot of Thai. You have some other ones. Usually it's drug offenses and things like that, criminals, gang members, and of course worse crimes you got going on. But he will be in that foreigner-only prison up in Cheonan. So Lauren says, sadly, he'll get deportation and no time in gladiator school. Yeah, he'll, and that's kind of the big thing, is wondering, is the Korean government, the justice system, are they going to go hard and make an example of Johnny Somali? Hopefully they do, because if they don't, then other nuisance streamers who have already come to Korea are doing the same thing. They need to go hard on Johnny Somali, because if they don't, it's just going to be a sign that other nuisance streamers can come to Korea, harass Koreans, harass people, break the laws, obstruction of business, do all these things. Johnny Somali is running around and is drunk in his underwear, in his underwear, drunk, outside, bothering people, yelling, screaming early in the morning and stuff outside. How he wasn't charged with, I don't know, if you did that in the United States, you get charges in some places, for the most part. But yeah, if they don't go hard on him, other nuisance streamers, and it's going to be, the Korean people are going to pay the price for the wheels of justice not turning as they should. Some people think that, well, Korea should have put him in jail, should have put him in prison, and so on and so forth. No, they're just giving him more rope to hang himself, and he has. That's the funny part. He keeps doing more stuff. So it seems like every time he goes to court, and then a little bit after that, there's another charge that's brought forth, which kicks everything back another 2 to 4 months. Lord, he might be here until 2027 before he gets his final sentencing. Henry says, the Trump government asking for him to be released because he's an American exercising his right to be an idiot is a timeline we live in. Yeah, but the problem is, I don't think Trump likes him. He broke the laws of the land. And Johnny keeps saying, and he's not Somali, by the way. He's actually Ethiopian descent. He actually said that his family is, Ethiopian and whatever. He just hates Somalians, and so he used that moniker, Johnny Somali, to put bad light, and the things that he does to put a bad light on Somalis. So there's that. But then again, he lies all the time, so who knows? But yeah, he keeps saying that, oh, I'm an American citizen, I'm just going to get a slap on the wrist, and so on and so forth. I don't think so. They better not. if Korea doesn't slam dunk him with prison time, and they have sentencing guidelines that talk about this, you have minimal time, and then you have max time, and then you have a few things in between. So far, according to the guidelines, Johnny is going to get some aggravated charges, which could mean 4 to 8 years, 12 years, something like that. Again, the deepfake videos, that carries a 10-year sentence in and of themselves. So, it's going to be rough. And he's not, he doesn't say he's sorry. He's not humble. He keeps, insulting police, and he's still getting in trouble. So he keeps doing stupid stuff and streaming it because that's how he makes his money. He does stupid stuff, breaks the laws, harasses people, and he records that. People record his streams, and then they turn that into the Korean police. The police investigate it. Then it goes to the prosecutors. And if it goes to the prosecutor's office and they accept it, the conviction rate for the prosecution is like 97, 98%. Once if the prosecution accepts the charge, and after they do their little investigation, conviction rate is like 97, 98%. So yeah, he's cooked. So it depends on what punishment he's going to get. I severely hope he gets prison time. I'm hoping for 8 to 10 years. That would be awesome, because that would serve him right. And, he says, oh, I'm just playing a character, and I'm just pushing the boundaries, and I'm really a good person, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, he tries to downplay the fact that you're in a foreign country and you're breaking the laws of the land. That's plain and simple. Oh, my audience made me do it. That's what he's talking about, doing that. Japanese prisons seem to be a lot less violent than the USA, but I don't know. That seems to be the case. Korean prisons seem to be less violent as well than the United States, definitely for sure. I mean, we got prisons in the United States like Louisiana, and then of course California's got some crazy places that I would never want to work at. But Colorado, we had our share of idiots and been in riots and so on and so forth, and stabbings and all that. It's just, prison is just not a good thing altogether. Let's see. But CB says that in Japan they do beat people. And Singapore, I like the caning idea. Of course, that's probably why Johnny didn't go to Singapore after that kid got caned. That's what Lauren says. Send him to Singapore and give him the cane. I remember the kid that got caught tagging, and his parents asked Clinton to interview, and Billy said no, and he got caned. I was rooting for Singapore on that one. That was good. Henry says, we'll see. Let's hope he gets prison time. Maybe he gets prison time, but on probation and is allowed to leave the country. The problem is Korea doesn't have probation, I don't think. But I'd have to look into that. But there's definitely recommendations for prison time for the charges that he's getting. According to the guidelines, he could do anywhere from 4 to 8+ years. And it depends on the aggravation of the charge and whether he's humble and sorry and, I shouldn't have done this. But he continues being an idiot. But he's still going to have to leave the country eventually after his time. So whatever that time is, Lord, please let it be 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. But he won't be able to stream. He'll be person non grata. He'll be stuck here in Korea. I just feel sorry for his parents and his extended family that have this idiot child, because he truly is an idiot child. I mean, somebody like that. And, his parents, apparently his parents are good people. They're like accountants and stuff like this. And it's like his parents found out, according to the rumor mill, a coworker of his dad showed a video of him doing stupid stuff, and his dad was like, yeah, that's my son. Could you imagine that? I would disown my kid if they ever did something like that. You can love your kid. I would still love my kid, but I could disown him for doing stupid. Son, you're stupid. I love you, but you got to go to prison. I don't know. But with that said, Henry does pop up and says, but maybe he'll get prison time, but he'll be on probation or whatever. Maybe he'll get minimal time. Maybe it'll just be a slap on the wrist and fine. Maybe, because judge can do whatever they want. There is the sentencing guidelines here in Korea, and the judge can follow those guidelines, or, as we've seen in the past with a lot of things in Korea, sometimes the judges are just like, meh. Koreans are way too innocent for a jackass like that. 10 years sounds good. Yeah, I like the 10 years. That's a nice round number. Johnny's like 26, 27 years old, something like that. How old is Johnny Somali? That's a question. Johnny Somali. Let's look up and see. And of course, he's got his own Wikipedia page. He was born in 2000. So he's 24 years old. He's an internet troll, blah, blah, blah. He's been banned from so many things, but he's still streaming. Supposedly, his father's from Somalia and his mom is Ethiopian. But, again, it's hard to tell. He claims to have grown up in Scottsdale, Arizona, and graduated from Arizona State University. He claims to have been a financial worker and a real estate manager. But, yeah, there's no proof of that. He does mostly streaming stuff with Twitch. He was a problem child in Israel. He got arrested in Israel. He got arrested in Japan. Did a little bit of time in Japan as well. And then came to Korea. And, it's just absolutely crazy. So, yeah, he's been causing problems in a lot of places. He's got, matter of fact, let's take a look at this and I'll show you. So his legal proceedings as of 16 May and June, July, we've got another trial in August. Over 35 years of prison. No, it's not going to be 35 years in prison. Interference of business, count 1, he pled guilty. Minor Crimes Act, which is like misdemeanor. There's one count there, he pled guilty. So for these 4 crimes here, he pled guilty. So interference of business, he had 2 counts of that as guilty and 2 counts of minor crimes. So you're looking at 5 years max, 30 days max. But again, those are the maximum. Some of those can be fines, but then he has a special act of sexual violent crimes, which is he pleaded not guilty, which is the deepfake videos. That can be 10.5 years maximum. I don't know if that's for each count we'll get 10 and a half years. So it could be 21 years. We don't know that. Interference of business, again, that's from Lotte World. And there's another thing that there's possibly going to be another charge. So that'll be really interesting. But yeah, it's another obstruction of business charge has popped up. So they're thinking that other crime, which he's getting charged with, which he will get and find out about on this court case in 13 August, is possibly another public transportation, either a train or subway system or something, the obstruction of business charge. So we don't know for sure, but it's definitely another charge is coming down. So yeah, absolutely crazy on what is going on. So yeah, he won't get 35 years in prison because, again, if you're talking about the max penalty, but Korea doesn't usually do the max. So even with high-profile people, they don't get the max. Henry says, where'd you go? Henry, where'd you go? Where'd you go? There you are. Yeah, it's not going to be 10 years. If he has to sit for 2 years before being released, we could be happy. I don't know. I'm shooting for 10. I'm praying for 10. But the interesting thing is the deepfake videos. That is going to be the kicker on the deepfake videos, because that is a high-level crime. And basically what that is it's a deepfake video where it's manipulated to make it look like sexual contact with somebody else that they didn't give approval for, which is a huge crime here in Korea. And he's done it twice. The thing is that he can say, well, I didn't make the video, I just showed it and I thought it was funny. That doesn't count, because according to Korean law, the distribution of that, showing it on his streams, and all the other places that he had, like we showed in that picture, he streamed that out for the world to see. That is the crime as well. So if you made the video, okay, and there's proof that you made the video, that's a crime under that crime act of deepfake videos. But even if you did make the video but you distributed it through online means, you're breaking the law there as well. So yeah, he's pretty much cooked. And again, the conviction rate when it gets to the prosecution level is 97, 98%. Yeah, he's probably going to do some time. But the question is, will the judge at the final sentencing, after all of these charges are finished, and he's going to get one big lump sum fine, one big lump sum prison time, how long of the prison time is it going to be? They better give him some serious time, especially if we're looking at all of that. Yeah, 10 years it is. Yeah, but give a like if you want 10 years. That's my recommendation. Give a like to the video if we're pushing for 10. Pushing for 10. Yeah, and he's tried to leave Korea. He got an emergency passport where he was trying to leave Korea. So in other words, he was already under investigation. He was told that he can't leave Korea because he's having charges and he needs to show up to court. He actually went to the U.S. Embassy, probably said, "Oh, I lost my passport," got an emergency passport, went to the airport, and then was denied because, yeah, you're Ramzi Khalid Ismail, aka Johnny Somali. It doesn't matter that you have an emergency passport. You're under investigation. You have to go to court, and you have charges pending. You cannot leave Korea. So yeah, he tried to pull a slick one in that, and it didn't work out. Send to the Philippines, where he can be Vitali's cellmate. The Philippines locked up Vitali for harassment. Oh yeah, harassment, stealing stuff. The problem with the Philippines is what they're seeing now with him is that people, the victims, have been bribed by Vitali's family by giving them a bunch of money and say, "Oh well, yeah, I'm withdraw my thing." You know, yeah. Because when you have people in a poor country, and Philippines is a poor country, and if you offer them enough money, like, hey, you drop the charge against this Vitali guy, and I'll give you, a year's salary of what you could make in a year, probably people are faced with, do I just keep the charge going because of the principle of the thing, or am I going to take a year's worth of money, and it's a really poor country and I'm really poor, I would probably go for the money. So, very, very interesting. But again, yeah, it would be funny to see those two. Johnny wouldn't make it in a Philippine prison. He'd probably be okay in a Korean prison. I've seen pictures and videos of the foreigner-only prison. Seems nicer than some of the prisons I've seen on the inside. So, yeah, and they're kind of, they're soft. They're soft. I mean, admit it. If you can't get an inmate out of a cell and do an extraction to show up for questioning and go to court because he's laying there in his underwear and it's like, oh, we can't do anything because there might be an accident, might get hurt. The inmate won. The inmate is won. The prison is soft. And I imagine the prison that Johnny's going to go to, if he does stupid stuff, they'll be soft as well. So, yeah, it just doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. So anyway, that's what we got going on. Johnny Somali, the eternal idiot, is continuing to do stupid. Some people are saying that he's guaranteed prison time. No, he's not guaranteed prison time because, again, it's up to the judge, has the discretion to hand out the punishment. And so in other words, the judge can follow the sentencing recommendations, the guidelines, but he's not bound to do those. So it could be he's like, he had to stay in Korea, he couldn't work, supposedly. Maybe they'll think they're soft enough that the judge says, we'll just get him out of here. We'll deport him. We'll put a 5 or 10-year ban on him, and then, boom, case is closed. We don't have to worry about it. If the judge does that, you're going to have a ton of nuisance streamers, and that's going to be bad for Korea. It's going to be bad for people like me, and most of all, the Korean people. because you're going to have these stupid streamers coming around, harassing people, breaking the laws, and you're just enabling these people to do this if you don't punish this idiot. Yeah, there it is. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Johnny Somali. Idiots are us. Crazy stuff. So, yeah, and there's even more talk that he's going to get more charges, and yeah, if that happens with each new charge, again, this is going to push it back another 2 to 4 months. So Korea is kind of doing the slow roll. The wheels of justice are going really slow for Johnny Somali, but it's just giving him more rope to hang himself even more, and for allowing the prosecution to do more investigations, for the police to do more investigations. And of course, when other people see that Johnny is getting charged with these things, more victims can come forward and say, you know what? Yeah, he was a douche. Yeah, I'm going to file a police complaint. Oh, and with that, another thing, one of the victims filed a petition to give the max sentencing to Johnny Somali. So it is it's an official thing here in Korea where they end up and they say, hey, here's what we're going to end up doing. We're requesting, because of he's not humble, he's not sorry, he's not, restitution, none of that. His apologies have been stupid, because as soon as he made that apology, he goes around and he bad talks Korea again, threatening the president, said China, is the best. Japan should have taken over Korea, and just, he's just an idiot. But yeah, it'll get interesting. It'll get interesting. That's for sure. So again, yeah, and the deepfake videos is the thing. Under South Korean law, the creation, distribution, and possession of non-consensual AI-generated, let me show you all this, AI-generated deepfake videos, popular streamer Bong Bong, and there was another streamer, some guy, fabricated intimate scenes with Somali. And again, it's classified as a sexual crime. Legal experts have confirmed that his offense carries a mandatory prison sentence of up to 7 years. Actually, it's up to 10.5. Unlike previous charges, which allow for financial penalties, this crime eliminates the possibility of a mere fine. Again, it's up to the judge's discretion, but from what we've seen in the past here in Korea, judges are a little bit more, there's a lot of fines being paid. There's a lot of money being paid from the people who commit the crimes to their victims, and then they get lesser sentence. But the thing is, Johnny hasn't done that. So, yeah, it's bad. The deepfake video is bad. Here's a little part that talks about it. High-profile cases where deepfakes and so on and so forth. 2024 lawmakers passed legislation criminalizing the possession and viewing of non-consensual deepfake content. So the whole thing that one of the things Johnny says is that, hey, I didn't make it. I didn't know it was a deepfake. Well, yeah, you did, because you didn't kiss that girl in real life, and you're showing a video, AI-generated video of where you did. So yeah, you knew it was a deepfake. Says penalties are unyielding. Offenders can face up to 3 years in prison or fines reaching 30 million won, equivalent to 22 grand. Distributing or profiting from such content carries even harsher consequences, with sentences up to 7 years. Actually, it's up to 10 years. South Korean society is still healing from cyber exploitation and so on and so forth. That whole thing is going to be crazy, because he distributed it and he profited from it. Yeah, boom, right there. Profiting, distributing, or profiting. So making, distributing, or profiting from that content, which he has, because he shows it on his live stream and he gets money for those streams in IRL streaming. Yeah. And the funny thing was, when he was charged, in the last court date that he had, the judge brought these out, says, yeah, you're getting charged with these deepfakes. And then the judge asked and said, do you have any evidence showing that you're innocent? And there was a little conversation, and then Johnny's lawyer says, no, we have no evidence showing that he is innocent. But he pled not guilty. You have evidence showing that you are guilty, but you don't have any evidence saying that you're innocent, but you're going to plead not guilty, which is going to make this go even longer. So yeah, he's very nervous. His last court case, he ended up drunk. He was an hour late. Contempt of court. Of course, he was in contempt of the court, but he didn't get a charge. Made a spectacle of himself. He was drunk the night before. Yeah, but the AI-generated content and deepfake videos is definitely a thing. So legal proceedings continue. Uncertainty remains. Prison time is inevitable for Johnny Somali. Again, we'll see what happens. Days of streaming reckless stunts for online clout are gone. Hopefully, they better slam dunk him. He could face a cold reality of South Koreans' unwavering justice system. I don't know if it's unwavering. I don't know. If you've been here for a minute, or you kept your ear to the ground for Korea, yeah, it's not as unwavering as you would think. So, fun fact: Saudi still takes your head, hand, and hands out whippings for Friday entertainment. Yeah, a lot of those countries still do stonings, public stonings. They will bury people up to their neck and they will stone them until they're dead, unalive, or whatever. No longer processing oxygen. So, yeah, very, very interesting on some of the things. Matter of fact, slavery, there's more slavery now than at the height of slavery way back in the day when there were slaves in the United States. But nobody cares about that now. You know, nobody cares that there is a booming slave industry in those countries, and still in Africa, the continent, you know, the whole 9 yards. It is insane. And then, yeah, I'm not even going to get into there. Not even going to get into it. Well, prison time, high heat, racist umbrellas. We talked about that. We're getting a little bit of relief because of the rain, so we got that going on. Real estate still going up. Going to buy a property, probably not this year. Excuse me, maybe the end of next year, maybe into 2027. It all depends. I'll just keep my ear to the ground for good deals, because good deals are always there. It's just whether you find them or not. So we'll keep doing that. And then we talked about the presidential underwear, the softness of the Korean prison system, that they can't even get a guy to come answer questions because he's laying on the floor in his underwear. And here we're hoping that South Korea, wheels of justice, will slam dunk Johnny Somali. You wonder what's going to happen. I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. Anyway, so that's what we got going on. Some fun stuff here in Korea. Always fun. I also do other stuff, like I do my hobbies. You can see the stuff like on my desk there. I got the Hulk. I got some miniatures that I painted. I do 3D printing and stuff like that to keep me busy besides going to the gym. Today's another gym day, by the way. Henry Park says, thanks for the stream. It was fun as always. Good night and see you next time. Same to you, sir. Good seeing you. Good discussion. I hope we answered a lot of questions, which we did, and give a little insight on being retired here in Korea. Lauren has a question. Was there any disruption from the tsunami? Minimal. Very minimal. It was kind of like a big thing. It's like, ooh, tsunami. And then it's like, oh, rain, heat, racist umbrellas. And then that just, yeah, I don't know. Not really a big thing here. So, which is good. You know, I don't like death and destruction, only in video games, but yeah, wasn't really a big deal. But we are getting a lot of rain. There will be flash floods here in Korea. Flooding has been a problem in Korea for some time, and with the amount of precipitation that we have been getting, I always hate that word, that has always caused problems, and unfortunately, it isn't good there. CB says, good night. Was interesting. Yes, it was. Thank you for the input and the insight. It's always fun doing these conversations. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close this out. And here is the closing, the last screen. Like and subscribe to the video. Please, please do that. I would really appreciate that. I want to try to get more subscribers and views. I think we're up to 260,000 views on all my videos. we got that. Stay tuned for the next video. If you want to contact me, there's the email address. I answer every single email. Might take a couple of days. Just want to say hi or talk about Korea, how we retired here, or 3D printing or other stuff. Doesn't matter. I will answer those emails. The people down here below are the people on the scrolling ticker who have bought me coffee. There's a link in the description box for that. And people who have gave me super chats, which is, I didn't think that would ever happen, but people have done that as well. If you want to do that, that's cool. Awesome. Much respect for those people. But if you can't, please just like the video. That's the only thing that I ask. And with that, we will close this out. I'm going to finish up my latte, and we will see you on the next video. All right. Good seeing you. It was good. I enjoyed it. Good stuff. Always good. All right. Peace. Presidential underwear.